Okay, we might give everyone a minute and then we'll get into it. Okay, Christine, everyone ready?
Let's do it.
Let's begin. So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm David, one of Grist's partners, and today's webinar, it's a little different to normal. And today's webinar is more exciting as we are joined by 3 additional members of our behavioural analytics team. So let me introduce everyone to you. You'll recognise Kate from our previous webinars. Hi, Kate. How are you doing today?
Great, Dave. Thank you. You?
Good, thank you. Very well. Beautiful and sunny here in Melbourne. Hey, we're also joined by Jay Cherie, Lydia, and Nat. So welcome, Jay Cherie. How are you? Oh, good. And also by Lydia. How are you going today, Lydia?
Oh, thanks. How are you going, Dave?
Good, good. And good to see you, Nat. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And Jay Cherie, welcome to you. Have we got your? Are you?
Sorry, yeah, that was on mute. Sorry.
Good to talk to you. Good to talk to you. And the reason that we've asked more of the team to come along today is that for years, Grist's behavioural analysts have assessed the quality of our client conversations. Now, whether that's sales and service conversations or leader conversations like team meetings, training sessions, and coaching conversations. And we use micro-behavioural conversation frameworks such as the ACDC coaching framework that we've been exploring in this webinar series to provide important insights in how we can achieve better outcomes from our conversations. So it's a real treat today to have Kate, Jay Cherie, Lydia and Nat join us to share their expertise into how we assess a high-quality ACDC coaching conversation. So firstly, thank you all very much for coming along today. Okay, so today you're going to be joining us as a coach, learning how to assess your own coaching conversations, or you'll be an observer seeing how your organisation might use a micro-behavioural approach to use the quality, to improve the quality of your conversations in your teams. So welcome to all of you, and thank you for giving some of us your time. Kate, we'll just get that slide, next slide. Great. You're either joining us as a coach or an observer. And so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a process called calibration, and we're calibrating a coaching conversation using the ACDC coaching conversation framework. And its aim is to help coaches conduct their own self-assessment of a conversation, or to help leaders of coaches or a QA team to calibrate what good actually sounds like. Because assessing your own conversations, whether individually or as a coach, or even as an organisation, is the fastest and most effective way to improve any coach's performance. It helps coaches to identify the specific and small changes in behaviour that can have the biggest impact on outcomes. And as much as we can, as we go along the way, we'd love to hear your thoughts along the way. So please make the most of the chat function. And at different times, we may ask you to use the annotation tool. And you can find it by moving your mouse to the top of the screen until you see this navigation bar appear. You can click on annotate, choose a symbol, and you'll be able to make your mark on the screen. So, as I mentioned earlier, the plan today is to review a short behavioural coaching conversation. And it's a real coaching conversation that our team has assessed. And what we've done is we've re-recorded it to ensure that no one coach or organisation can be identified. The thing to keep in mind here is that the aim of the ACDC conversation is to help, is for a coach to help the team member to accept the current state of performance and then either to change or improve their current behaviours by identifying different options, different behaviours required to achieve a better, more desired state, before lastly making a commitment to demonstrate a small, easy to do new behaviour moving forward. So they're the things that we're going to be looking for today. So Kate, over to you. I'm looking forward to hearing how you and the team piece it all together to solve this coaching puzzle for our clients.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to today's session too. I guess it's the next logical step to the sessions that we've done previously, and that piecing together will help us move forward to get into those specific problem points that you as a coach, I'm sure, have had. So to give you a bit more context, and Dave's sort of just taken us through it a little bit there, we refer to what we're going to do today at Grist as a calibration session. And so basically what that comes down to is conducting an assessment of a coaching conversation, or really any conversation that you might have in your organisation between two parties. And we use a micro-behavioural approach of ACDC to assess the quality of that conversation. And as Dave mentioned, that audio that we're going to hear today is from a single coaching session that we've heard, and we've created that transcript, we've de-identified it, but really all of the content is exactly the same, and the language. So look, we know it's going to be a bit overwhelming to listen to a full conversation all at once and attempt to conduct some kind of calibration assessment on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it in bite-sized pieces, and we're going to take it a phase at a time, A, C, D, C. So when we hear the language begin to change and transition from one phase to the next, I'm going to stop the recording and we'll do a little bit of a debrief before we move on to the next phase. All right, well, time to get started, and let's begin with our first phase of A, and of course that stands for the agenda. So as with all of the ACDC phases, agenda is comprised of 5 micro-behaviours, and that allows us not only to objectively assess the quality of a coaching conversation, but to pinpoint where our strengths and weaknesses lie, allowing us to direct our efforts strategically into how to improve. And the 5 agenda micro-behaviours help build buy-in and commitment to the conversation by providing, a context or a why, and setting the scene a bit. So those 5 behaviours, what I'm going to do before each of our phases is take you through a quick refresh of the behaviours. I know that in previous sessions we've gone into them in quite a lot of detail, so this is really just a quick gloss over, refresh, just to give you a few reminders of what we're actually looking for and listening to in the conversation and how we're going to assess it. So first behaviour here, we've got the engage. And here we want to hear the coach seeking to engage with a team member. We want a warm interaction between the two parties. Next, we've got the focus, a clear statement of the focus or purpose of the session. We're looking for this to be a particular phase, capability, or behaviour. Next, we've got overarching goal. We want the coach to link the current session to a wider overarching goal, or even a previous coaching session at, even a personal, a team, or organisational level. Agendas next, and we should be hearing a mapping out of the key steps that the coach plans to take, looking for a minimum of 2 steps here. And the final behaviour here is the buy-in, and we should hear a clear question asking for the team members' input or confirming satisfaction with the purpose or agenda that they've set out. All right, so we're going to get into actually doing our assessment now. So have a pen and paper ready to make any notes you need to along the way. There's our 5 behaviours, and I just ask you to please hold off from making any annotations on the screen for now. We'll get to that, but I want to give everybody a chance to do their own thinking, and then we'll come together. All right, let's play.
Hello, Gino. Please take a seat.
Hi, Sonia. Thank you.
So great to see people in the flesh again for coaching, hey?
Yeah, it's so refreshing. It's great to be back.
Back to the real deal now. How was your weekend? Did you get up to anything exciting?
Actually, yeah. My brother got a new puppy, and so I went over to visit and meet him.
Oh, how cute. What kind of puppy?
Yeah, it's a little lab. His name's Roger.
Oh, Roger. I'm sure you'll be over there all the time wanting to see him.
Yeah, absolutely. Roger's going to be key to my overall well-being now. That's for sure.
Oh, that's so great. I'm so glad that you enjoyed yourself. Now, I know I only have you for a short time, so I'll jump right in. Today, I really want to focus on the behaviours around the engage and discovery sections. There are a lot of behaviours here that I think are key to the consultation success and your success and getting you to where you want to be.
Yeah, terrific. Sounds great to me.
Cool. So I just want to spend the next 20 minutes or so and we can have a chat about what went well, where there might be room for improvement, and then practice whatever we come up with. Put in a goal at the end there as well, hey? Does that sound all right to you? Anything you wanted to add?
No, that's great, Sonia. Let's get going.
Okay, great. So yesterday, I know you had a few appointments. What do you think you did well?
Okay, let's stop it there and hear how we heard that language change there and moving into more of a current state kind of conversation. So that means we're done with the agenda portion of the conversation. So before I get to exactly what you heard, I'd like to ask you this question. What are your first impressions of that agenda? I'm going to bring up this here and I want to hear, what do we think about it? Do we think it was a great agenda? Do we think it was pretty good? Were you thinking more average, or was it a poor agenda? Get that annotation tool and let us know what you think. Okay, all right. Sounds pretty good. Some are even going, look, it sounded great actually. All right, okay, well, it looks like we're calibrated so far and that we think that sounded like a pretty good agenda. All right, so let's get into what we actually heard. Which of those behaviours did we hear? Were there any missing? Okay, everyone heard engage, great. Oh, okay, a couple of question marks next to overarching goal. All right, fantastic. All right, so with all, we're doing, because we're doing the 4 phases today, we won't be going back through all of them in completion because some of them are longer than others, but for those phases that are a bit more condensed, like the agenda phase and the commitment at the end, we will go back through them. So let's go back through this agenda phase and actually see what went on.
Hello, Gino. Please take a seat.
Hi, Sonia. Thank you.
So great to see people in the flesh again for coaching, hey?
Yeah, it's so refreshing. It's great to be back.
Back to the real deal now. How was your weekend? Did you get up to anything exciting?
Actually, yeah. My brother got a new puppy, and so I went over to visit and meet him.
Oh, how cute. What kind of puppy?
Yeah, it's a little lab. His name's Roger.
Oh, Roger. I'm sure you'll be over there all the time wanting to see him.
Yeah, absolutely. Roger's going to be key to my overall well-being now. That's for sure.
Oh, that's so great. I'm so glad that you enjoyed yourself. Now, I know I only have you for a short time, so I'll jump right in. Today, I really want to focus on the behaviours around the engage and discovery sections. There are a lot of behaviours here that I think are key to the consultation success and your success and getting you to where you want to be.
Yeah, terrific. Sounds great to me.
Cool. So I just want to spend the next 20 minutes or so and we can have a chat about what went well, where there might be room for improvement, and then practice whatever we come up with. Put in a goal at the end there as well, hey? Does that sound all right to you? Anything you wanted to add?
No, that's great, Sonia. Let's get going.
Okay, great. So yesterday, I know you had a few appointments. What do you think you did well?
Fantastic. So it looks like we were pretty calibrated. Great, guys. So a lot of us really picked up on that change, that missing of the overarching goal. We didn't hear it. A few people thought they heard a focus, but some of you guys weren't quite so sure that the focus was there. So let's have a look at how that part of the conversation might look as far as the team member journey goes. Now, what we have here is a frequency graph of just this one conversation. And that's why it looks so extreme, where the yeses, where we heard the behavior, we get 100%. And where the behavior was missing, it gets 0%. So we're only ever going to see zeros or 100% in these frequency graph of a single conversation. So what it does is it gives you a good idea, especially if you're a visual learner, of the quality of that agenda and how it felt to the team member. And if you look at that graph, it just, looks a bit incomplete, doesn't it? There's that big dip there in the middle that the team member didn't get that full comprehensive agenda. So let's look at those two behaviors that were missed, the focus and the overarching goal. Okay, so what we heard was this. Today, I really want to focus on the behaviours around the engage and discovery sections. There are a lot of behaviours here that I think are key to the consultation success and your success and getting you to where you want to be. All right, so with a tweak to that language, we can actually pick up those two behaviours really easily. So I want to play you this example of a great example of how we can tweak our language a little bit to pick up those two. Let's have a listen.
Well, that's great. I'm so glad that you enjoyed yourself. Now, I know I only have you for a short time, so I'll just jump right in. Today, I really want to focus on the behaviours around the engage phase, in particular, seeking to engage. Nailing the engage phase will help us build those relationships and build that customer satisfaction. And what do you think that will get us to?
Well, hopefully number one branch in the region.
So there's just a little bit more specific in the language around the focus of the session and some more clarity around the overarching goal meant that both the coach and the team member were clear on the context and the reason for doing this coaching session. So let's move on now to our current state. Okay. Now, the intent of the current state phase is to create awareness and ownership of the current results, the current behaviours and the link between the two. The ultimate aim here is to help your coachee take ownership of the current state. To do that, there must be a degree of awareness about how the current actions or behaviours are producing the current results. And it's a critical part of the coaching process. So let's have a look at what we want to hear in that current state for the 5 coaching micro-behaviours. Right, I'm going to go through these in order, but for current state, there's really no restrictions on order. So they could happen in any order at any time and in any combination. So don't get hung up on having to follow that exact order. So the current outcomes. Here we're looking for a coach to ask questions to establish awareness of the current outcomes and reflect on their performance. The current behaviour involves asking questions to establish awareness of the team members' current behaviours driving the current results, current outcomes. For observations, we want to hear a coach sharing something that they've witnessed from the team member, and it needs to be more than just their stats or their KPIs. The discuss link must provide evidence that the team member understands how their current behaviours and outcomes relate. This can be through either a buy-in from the coach or volunteered by the team member. Some very self-aware team members just volunteer that link themselves. And finally, for the buy-in, we want to hear the coach overtly ask for the commitment to work on changing that current behaviour. Okay. Let's have a listen to our current state. Here are our behaviours. So you've got them in mind. Get your pens ready again. Let's go.
Okay, great. So yesterday, I know you had a few appointments. What do you think you did well?
Well, I think I'm getting really good at introducing myself and my role.
Yeah, that's good. Anything else?
I think I'm good at asking some good questions about their inquiry to help my understanding of it. So I think they're probably the standout.
I completely agree, Gino. But I think you're cutting yourself short a bit there. I think that there are a few more things I noticed when I sat down on a consult a couple of days ago. Do you mind if I share my positives?
Oh, please.
Great. Well, something I really enjoyed was the way that you set the expectations really clearly. You gave a rundown of what to expect, also the time frame, which I thought was terrific. Plus that statement of assistance, that was really, really strong and assured. So I think all of that introductory piece around the process of a consult is coming together really nicely.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet. I'm glad that you noticed that, actually, because at the start, saying all that stuff was sounding quite scripted and a bit robotic. But I think I'm definitely getting the hang of it.
Well, yeah, it can be a lot of information to remember to put into a conversation. I totally get that. I was very similar when I first started doing my first client consults, juggling all the things you think you needed to say, but still trying to make it natural.
Yes, completely. And I'm probably so worried about forgetting something that I come across as quite, I don't know, removed from the customer. That might be too harsh a word. Maybe like I'm not connecting with them.
Okay, yeah. Well, shall we focus on making them a little more, I guess, personal? Do you think that might be something that we can focus on for the rest of the session?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
All right, so a greater level of connection or making it personal. How do you think we could achieve that?
Okay, let me stop it there. Who picked up on that change of language, moving from the current state and into the desired state? Yeah?
Yeah, it really changes to future state language, isn't it? Like, let's have a look, instead of now, let's have a look at what we can do.
Exactly. Yeah. It's that moving on to the future, this problem solving. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's have a little chat here about the current state then. And again, I'm going to ask you that same question I asked you before. What are our first impressions of that current state? Do we think it was great, good, average, or poor? Yeah, sounded pretty good to me. I liked it. Cool. Again, we look like we're all, we're all thinking along the same lines. All those stars are in the same spot. Like it. Excellent. Thank you for that. Now I want you to tell me what you heard. What behaviours did you pick up in that current state? Fantastic. Okay, yeah, a couple of question marks around, current outcomes. Excellent. All right, we're pretty in line with the behaviours, observations and buy-in. People liked what they heard there. Fantastic. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, this phase is a little more comprehensive. So we will just go into the specific behavioural language that we heard for each of the behaviours rather than go through the full transcript all over again. So let's jump in and have a look at what we heard at the beginning. So here, the team member stated that they're getting really good at introducing themselves in their role, and that's our current behaviour. Fantastic. And what followed was a great observation by the coach, who mentioned specific behaviours such as providing a rundown of what to expect and timeframes and statement of assistance that the team member was doing well. That's what we want to hear from an observation. Other observations could be specifically verbalising exact language that they heard their team members say, either with a customer or a client. They might be able to recite like a little portion of a conversation that they had. That will be a really powerful observation for a coach to do. Okay, the next behaviours we heard, the team member saying that removed from the customer and didn't connect with them. This misses the mark for our current outcomes and our discuss link. But do you think that might be something that we can focus on for the rest of the session? It's a really great buy-in, current phase conversation. All right, let's have a look at our conversation frequency graph again for the current state. 100% obviously is a yes, we heard it. 0% is it was missed. Because our coach didn't discuss and bring awareness to that current outcome, they weren't able to link the team members' current behaviours to it. So therefore they missed that discuss link as well. Now, to take us through this in a little bit more detail, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce my co-senior benchmark analyst, Jayshree Matam. Thanks for joining us, Jayshree. I can't wait to hear your insights in this phase.
Thanks, Kate. Okay, let's have a look at the two behaviors that missed the mark in the conversation we heard. One was the current outcome, and the second one was discuss link. Kate has already taken us through what the behaviors are. So now let's look at why these behaviors are important. Let's start with the current outcome. This is what we heard. I don't know, removed from the customer. That might be too harsh a word. Maybe like I'm not connecting with them. Dave, I'd like to hear why you think that's not clear enough.
You know, it's just a bit vague, isn't it? It's not really the outcome. It's just not quite clear enough.
That's correct. It's too vague, and it's as simple as that. So we'll listen to this part of the audio clip. Let's listen to an example where the team member is going that step further and clearly stating the current outcome.
Well, I guess without an engage, I can come across as quite, I don't know, removed from the customer. That might be too harsh. Maybe like I'm not connecting with them. I don't think they're as comfortable or happy to be there sometimes.
So outcome we heard here is, I don't think the customer is comfortable or happy. And that's the kind of awareness we want the team member to have. Knowing the outcome can help the team member understand why he or should continue or change what they have been doing. And if the outcome is not favorable, it gives them an opportunity to look at doing things differently. And most of the times, the team members do the behaviors because that's what's expected out of them. That's what they've been told to. But if they understand the results of their actions and behaviors, it definitely drives the behavioral change.
So, Jayshree, what happens if a team member doesn't give us exactly what we want? You know, how can we tweak the language here and get the outcomes that we're looking for?
Well, if you as a coach don't get a clear outcome the first time, ask further questions. Just, drill down, get to a final clear outcome. And usually, ideally speaking, it's an open question that really helps you bring out that, information, drive that information. But if that doesn't work, you just follow it up with a couple of closed questions. And by asking a drill down question like, what do you think would happen if you, don't connect with them? We can really draw that information from the team member. And the other thing to remember is that the outcome doesn't always have to be client or customer centered. It can be a metric. It can be an organizational outcome or results. For example, if AHD is one of the things you're focusing on, so AHD being low or NPS target of, say, for example, 50, these are pretty clear outcomes according to us. So now let's look at the discuss link. Now here we have 3 examples of discuss link. So what I would like you to do is take some time to read each and then tell me which one you think ticks the box for discuss link. You can use the annotation tool and pop up your emojis on there. And remember what Kate mentioned before, we're after how the team members' current behaviors and current outcomes relate. So how do they marry up? Awesome. Let's have a look. Cool. But clearly the first one is the winner. Now, what we need to keep in mind is that the intent here is to check if the team member really understands the link between a current behavior and the impact it has on the result or the outcome. It provides them with why behind doing a behavior. And unless they understand the impact, it's highly unlikely that you will see a behavior change. Now, the second example that we've got on the screen does give us an idea on how the discuss link should sound. If we look at the alternate response, we can see that the team member understands that the link as they are able to articulate how the behaviors and outcomes relate. With our third example, a yes or a no answer from the coachee is not enough unless the coachee explains in some ways that he or she understands. In the alternate response, we can see that they do understand. And clearly, when we did the calibration and everyone had their markings up right there, so we know that you guys have got it, you understand it. All we need to do is just tweak the language every time you talk to your team members. I hope the current phase discussion provided you with enough tips to transition towards the next part of the conversation, which is the desired state.
Yeah, that's a nice insight, Jay Cherie. Thank you. You know, it really is about getting them to, get that link to the outcome, how their behaviour is actually producing that outcome, isn't it? It's not just enough to acknowledge that they're doing the behaviour.
Yeah, exactly. And because if they understand that, what happens if I do this, or what happens if I don't do this, if they understand that, it drives or gives them more confidence in doing a specific behavior more consistently, as opposed to just telling them, you have to do this because that's your KPI.
If you don't accept the change, accept what's going on in the current state, it's very hard to have motivation to make a change, right? There's no reason to make a change, so behavioural change doesn't happen.
That's correct, yeah.
So important. Yeah. Nice, thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jay Cherie. That was really great insight.
Thank you.
Right, let's shuffle on to our third phase, the desired state. And as you may remember from our desired state webinar, the intent of this phase is to build understanding and ownership of the behaviours that need to be demonstrated in order to achieve the desired result. So at this point, you really hear a shift in the language that the coach uses as we move from, what has happened into what needs to be done, just like Dave and I sort of heard at the beginning of, or at the end of our current state phase example there. The key here is to achieve your team members' buy-in that doing it differently will yield a better outcome. Let's look at our 5 behaviours. So as with the current state, in desired state, we are not looking at a particular order for these behaviours. They can happen in any order and in any combination. But we'll begin with desired outcomes. And we're looking for a coach to ask questions to establish awareness of a desired outcome and think about, where they would rather be. Desired behaviour involves questions to establish awareness of a team member's desired behaviours required to drive to that desired outcome. Practice must consist of in some way or in some part as a two-way role play. A team member vaguely outlining what could be done isn't enough for this behaviour. A discuss link must provide evidence that the team member understands how the desired behaviours relate to the desired outcomes, exactly like it did in current state with the current behaviours and the current outcomes. And finally, for the buy-in, we want to hear that the coach overtly asks for a commitment to demonstrate the desired behaviours in way of a future commitment. Okay, let's have a listen to our desired state.
All right, so a greater level of connection or making it personal. How do you think we could achieve that?
Well, I think I'm good about talking about myself and sharing stuff, but I probably don't actually ask them too much about themselves, other than, the stuff that I have to ask about financial situations, histories, etc., etc.
Yeah, so maybe a more casual get-to-know-you sort of thing. There is a behaviour that I reckon fits quite well there, and it's the seek to engage section.
Oh yeah, maybe that's what's missing. It is definitely that engagement piece.
What do you think that could sound like?
I guess probably start pretty small, but then you could build a conversation out of it. So like even simple things like, how was your morning? What did you get up to before this? Or if they're in during the day, normally they might have unusual working hours or something like that. So I could ask, did you take a break from work for this?
Yeah, I think they're great. And it'll allow you to dig deeper after they give an answer too. So follow-up questions are just as important here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the benefits of this could be?
Well, I guess with a greater sense of personal connection, you are really building that rapport. Definitely a stronger relationship with the client increases their satisfaction and builds their loyalty to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And asking those engaged questions early on, how do you think that would impact your consult overall?
Well, my goal when I'm asking all the questions that I have to is to get to know them so that I can tailor the right solutions. So having these engaged questions just lets me get to know them to an even greater extent and potentially offering them a more tailored or even additional product because now I have all this new information about it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The more information you have, the better you can do your job. This is just a new way of getting that information, but in a much less formal way.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, so you gave some good examples, and I think you'll be able to add them into your consult easily.
Yeah, I guess I'll, work out how they fit, trial and error, I suppose.
And so you're comfortable with that Seek to Engage piece? Great stuff. So goal around Seek to Engage. What percentage of consults do you want to be using this new engagement in?
All right, let's stop there. We heard that change of language again. We've moved from that desired state conversation, talking about what can be done, into a goal setting conversation. And so that's our final stage in commitment. Okay, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm a bit of a broken record today. What do we think of that desired state? It was great. Do we think it was good? Pretty good? Good to average? A couple are thinking it's somewhere in the middle there, but on the whole, pretty good. They seem to have a pretty good rapport, these two, don't they? Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. All right, now let me know what you heard. Oh, okay, all right, poor practice. Yeah, okay. We didn't hear that two-way role play. People are thinking, all right, well, like with current state, I'm just going to focus on the behaviour specific language that we heard in this phase. So let's jump in and see how I heard it. Okay, so most of us were able to identify that the desired behaviours was there, but notice that there was no two-way role play. So the practice didn't quite tick the box. We also heard a desired outcome and also a link on how that related to the desired behaviours. And finally, at the end, we heard the coach ask if the team member was comfortable with the Seek to Engage piece. And that's not quite enough for our buy-in. We're not looking for comfort. We're looking for, are you able to commit to doing it? So Nat's going to talk us through exactly why we marked this way in just a moment. But first, let's have a quick look at our old friend, the frequency graph, and see what we saw. Okay, again, a bit of a zigzaggy little experience there for our team member and coach. Not much consistency in the experience, and arguably our most important behaviour practice is missing. So I'm going to welcome Nat Corboy, another of our GRIST expert behavioural analysts, and he also happens to be a psychology graduate. So he's going to provide us some really great insight into this space.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate, for that lovely introduction. So let's jump right in. I think both of the micro behaviours that we're missing in that recording, like Kate said, are really important. And they address two really key questions. The first is, can this person do it? And the second is, will this person do it? And don't get me wrong, the examples that we heard are much better than not addressing the micro behaviours at all. But if we focus more towards the intent behind those behaviours, we can change this whole phase from good to great. All right, so now regarding this first one, the practice. From the example, we see that the coachee or the agent is giving some suggestions. And whilst this does give them tips on future execution, the learning experience is lessened when it's just demonstration. And let's have a look at some other fields to see why. So let's imagine that you're training for a sport, any sport, but I've just picked tennis. And let's say that for the coaching session, the majority of the session was the coach demonstrating how to serve. You didn't get to apply their tips and tricks, and you didn't get to find out your unique style or technique through collaborating with them. So come game day, your serve might look a little bit less like the coaches on the left and maybe a little bit more like this one. Or for a more relevant example, let's say that you're conducting an oral presentation and for some reason you aren't the one writing the speech. Having to present someone else's words can feel really odd, and it's harder to remember those words if they aren't something that you'd come up with yourself, by yourself, sorry. So you might feel a little less prepared. I think that that's the potential problem here. And I'm not saying that that specific problem will happen for every coachee, but it definitely could. If we think about the intent of practice, we would much rather develop or nurture people's skills in coming up with good examples on the spot, rather than being able to repeat what a coach said or did. And that's the downfall of just a demonstration. If we go back to that key question, we aren't asking, can they do it? And we're asking, can they replicate it? And we're trying to encourage behavior change. And when faced with the task of learning a new behavior and having to adjust, learning by doing is the best approach. So allowing that person to experiment with that behavior change through different phrasing and executions and getting feedback on that is so much more powerful and beneficial than simply providing the answers. So in this example, all we need to do is switch giving examples for asking whether they want to do a role play. All right, to the buy-in. When we look at this first example, I want to ask you a question. Do you think this phrase is asking them about their motivation and willingness to change? Or is it asking them about their confidence and ability to change? Grab that annotation tool and let me know. All right. So I'm seeing a lot of confidence and ability, which is good. Thank you for your responses. And it can be a little bit ambiguous, and especially with that word comfortable, people use that in really different ways in really different contexts. The problem with ambiguity here is that we don't actually need a confidence or ability check. And that's because by this stage at the buy-in, we've worked with the coachee through discussing desired behaviors, and we've even practiced. So going back to what I said about those two key questions, can this person do it? We probably already know that, but will this person do it? That's what we need to know. So what's missing in this phase, if we don't get this buy-in right, is that motivation piece. And that's why it's so important to ask questions like, are you willing to do this behavior moving forward? Or something similar to this example, are you happy to set a goal or target regarding future use of this behavior? So getting their input and their confirmation of willingness is that final piece that gathers enough momentum for actual behavior change. I will leave it there and pass you back over to Kate for the next phase.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nat. That was really great.
Awesome.
Okay, moving on to our next phase is the commitment. So the ultimate purpose or intent of that commitment phase at the end of our ACDC process is to gain a commitment from our team member to demonstrate the desired behaviours that we've identified throughout the coaching session. So it ties it all together and sends it on its way to get the team member working on it to improve. It's a commitment to deliberately practice the behaviour while you as a coach are not around. So it's a commitment to keep trying the behaviour, even if it doesn't work so well at the start. And it's a commitment to consciously think about the impact of the behaviour on the outcomes that they're trying to achieve. This is the moment where the ownership is transferred to the person that you're coaching, our team member. So as a coach, it is your responsibility or our responsibility to make sure the goals and commitments being agreed on are as simple and easy to do as possible. When there's a lack of clarity or some uncertainty, it's much more likely that the goals or actions won't be done completely. So let's have a look at the 5 micro behaviours that we're looking for the commitment phase. Okay. So our behaviour, and it's just that, a clarification on the behaviour that we want to see demonstrated. It doesn't need to be really overt so long as it's clear which behaviour is the focus. Second, we've got the quantity and date. It isn't an either or behaviour. We need to hear both components here to give it a yes. How many times will the behaviour be demonstrated and by when? The measure, we're looking for an agreement on a tracker or a recorder to provide evidence that the behaviour has been practiced. For confidence, the coach should overtly ask if the goal is something a team member can achieve given the parameters discussed. The commitment confidence check protects a team member from underestimating or overestimating how much they can actually achieve within the given time frame limits. And therefore, it really needs to happen after all of those goal components have been put into place. It just doesn't make sense to have it earlier on in this commitment phase. And the support, here we're just listening for a coach to proactively clarify the support or feedback that they will provide around this goal. Okay, now we've got our little tips for how to assess the commitment phase. Let's jump in and have a listen to the recording.
Great stuff. So goal around seek to engage. What percentage of consults do you want to be using this new engagement in?
Look, I'd love for it to be in 100%. I'm not sure I can achieve that right away though. So maybe if we go like 80% of my calls.
Yep, 80% sounds great. How will we know whether you're hitting 80%?
Well, I'm taking notes during the questions anyway, so maybe I could just bold the notes that I got from Seek to Engage so they stand out. And then I'll just compare how many times there's something bold in my notes to how many consults I had that day.
Brilliant. And could you send that to me?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thank you. And I know I asked you this just before, but just to double check, are you comfortable with the Seek to Engage statements?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, out of 10?
Oh, about an 8.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, well, is there any other support you need from me?
No, I'll be fine. I'm independent enough.
You are indeed. But regardless, how about I check in at lunchtime tomorrow and see how the morning went?
Yeah, that'd be handy. Good to keep me in line.
Okay. So I'll end the coaching there, and you have a great afternoon, Gino.
You too, Sonia. Thanks for today.
Oh, Sonia and Gino, fantastic coaching session, guys. Well done. All right, so I'm a bit like a broken record here. I want to hear what you thought of that commitment phase. Yeah, it did sound pretty thorough, didn't it? Got some greats, got some goods. I'm yet to see anyone think that any of these phases were poor. I mean, only even a couple are verging towards the average. So it seems like on the whole, we're pretty happy with how this coaching session has taken place and that we're sort of ticking off a lot of the behaviours. Let's have a look at the specific behaviours you heard here in commitment. What did you hear? Okay, yeah, all right. Okay. People aren't confident that they heard a confidence check. All right, now because this phase is one of our nice condensed ones, we will listen to the whole thing as it runs in the transcript, because a couple of them are a little bit related to the placement of them. The placement is a bit key, especially with that measure and the confidence check. All right, so let's jump in and listen to the script.
Great stuff. So goal around seek to engage. What percentage of consults do you want to be using this new engagement in?
Look, I'd love for it to be in 100%. I'm not sure I can achieve that right away though. So maybe if we go like 80% of my calls.
Yep, 80% sounds great. How will we know whether you're hitting 80%?
Well, I'm taking notes during the questions anyway, so maybe I could just bold the notes that I got from Seek to Engage so they stand out. And then I'll just compare how many times there's something bold in my notes to how many consults I had that day.
Brilliant. And could you send that to me?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thank you. And I know I asked you this just before, but just to double check, are you comfortable with the seek to engage statements?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, out of 10?
Oh, about an 8.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, well, is there any other support you need from me?
No, I'll be fine. I'm independent enough.
You are indeed. But regardless, how about I check in at lunchtime tomorrow and see how the morning went?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that'd be handy. Good to keep me in line.
Okay. So I'll end the coaching there, and you have a great afternoon, Gino.
You too, Sonia. Thanks for today.
Wonderful. All right. Let's see how that translates to our frequency graph. Look at that. Big W. All right. So our coach specified the quantity, but there wasn't a clear date that was set. So they missed that behavior. And the confidence check wasn't a confidence check, was it? It was really related to the team members' comfort with a particular behavior. So it wasn't a specific confidence check or question relating to the goal. Now, to share her wisdom and insights with us, I'd like to please welcome Lydia Trogolich, Behavioural Analyst Expertise. Thanks, Lydia.
Thanks, Kate, too kind. So as we know, these first 3 behaviours, behavioural goal, quantity and date, and measure, together make up the micro goal. If anything is missing from this part of the phase, it's a missed opportunity to set a clear and defined goal and set your team member up for success. So as you mentioned, here we can see this zigzag of performance in this phase. So let's see what we can do to bring that performance up, to straighten that line for a stronger phase. The 2 behaviours we'll be focusing on, or taking a closer look at, are quantity and date, and confidence. Now let's jump in and see how what we might be able to tweak. So our first behaviour is quantity and date, and you'll recall that we need to hear both of these for the behaviour to be awarded. So let's have another listen to how that sounded earlier.
Look, I'd love for it to be in 100%. I'm not sure I can achieve that right away though. So maybe if we go like 80% of my calls.
So as you can see, the date component is missing here. And without that date component, the coach and the team member are setting a goal without an end date in mind. Without this being defined, the goal is much less likely to be done. The team member won't be clear on when they need to achieve this goal by, and this can affect their motivation as well as their ability to prioritize their tasks. So let's now take a look and listen to the great example in the second audio clip.
Look, I'd love it to be 100%. I'm not sure I can achieve that right away though. Maybe if we go for like 80% of my calls.
Yeah, 80% sounds great. Should we check for that 80% at close of business tomorrow?
Yeah, perfect. 80% by tomorrow.
Yeah, so you'll have heard there now that the coach and team member have set a date when they'll review the team member's progress with this goal. So the team member is clear when they're aiming to show the improvement by. It's a relatively subtle addition, but you can see how remembering to include this can be really impactful as it improves the likelihood that the goal will be worked on by the agreed upon deadline. Another benefit to the team member is that incorporating an end date assures them that this behavior isn't something they will be coached on forever. It brings a nice closure point to their coaching development.
Oh, it's so true, isn't it, Lydia? Like, you know, you hear all the time that, you know, people are going to get coached on rapport or being, you know, friendlier or asking better questions or open questions, right? And then there's no end date to that. So, you know, you're right about the insight around, hey, let's get it done by this date. But also, when you put a date on it, it says you're not going to be coached on open questions for the rest of your natural born life. That there is an end date. Sooner or later, you will get some mastery, and we'll move on to something else. It's a really nice insight, Lydia.
Absolutely, yeah. There's the security and the motivation that there is an end date coming, and it's not just open-ended for sure, Dave. Yep. So the second commitment phase behaviour we're going to take a look at is confidence. Now, remember, this confidence check is really about focusing in on the team member's confidence with the goal that's been set. Let's have a listen to how it sounded earlier.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thank you. And I know I asked you this just before, but just to double check, are you comfortable with the seek to engage statements?
So as you can see, the coach is gauging the comfort of the team member in performing the new behaviour that they want to integrate, but not checking their confidence in achieving their behavioural goal. It's nuanced, but it's important as it allows a point of intervention in case the initial goal target is not realistic or achievable. So now we'll take a listen to our great example in the second clip.
That would be awesome, thank you. And you're confident with your goal of 80% by close of business tomorrow?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yes, there's only really a slight change in the wording again, but it's very clear that the coach is referring to the team member's goal when asking about the confidence. And now any concerns or hesitations from the team member about the goal they're agreeing to can be amended if needed. And this ensures the team member is set up for success in achieving that goal. So the team member then feels more at ease, and the coach themselves can feel more confident that the goal that has been set is appropriate and achievable.
It's an important distinction, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Really changes things for them. Okay, so now we've looked at confidence more closely. Let's take a look at some different ways of demonstrating this behavior. After all, there's more than one way to cook an egg. So here we have 3 examples of great looking eggs. And below them, there are 3 versions of confidence checks. Each of these are great examples of demonstrating the confidence behavior that you could use. So which one is most appealing to you? Which feels most natural to say? I want you to have a read of these examples and pick the one that feels best for you and is the one that you could see yourself using. So I'll just give you some time to read through, and once you've picked one, just pop a tick or a stamp emoji or anything you like next to your favorite phrasing or the breakfast of your choice. Okay, yeah, I'm a scrambled eggs girl too. That's exactly where I go. Nice. So as you can see, there's more than one way to get the message across. All of these examples clearly ask the team member about how achievable they think their micro goal is. So just remember that it's perfectly okay to personalize what you're saying. Go with what you feel most comfortable with. Now I'll hand you back to Kate.
Thank you so much, Lydia. Thank you. And I hope now you've all really got a craving for eggs. So I won't keep you too much longer. We're going to tie up all of our phases now, and we're going to set a goal at the end so you can go ahead and improve your coaching sessions. Now, I know I've been getting you to reflect a lot during this session and reflect back on each of the phases, on what was our general impressions of each of the phase. And for the most part, after each phase, we were all saying, look, they sounded pretty good. For the most part, all 4 of those phases got a resounding good. So we all thought basically this was a pretty darn good coaching session. So let's have a look at our friend, the frequency graph. And what I've got here is all of those 4 phases put together. Let's just have a little bit of a look at what that displays as. So look, if you look at it just on the face, it looks like a pretty inconsistent experience, doesn't it? So even though on the surface, those phases sounded like it was a pretty good coaching session, when you begin to look at it objectively through the lens of an ACDC micro-behaviour, it shows a different picture. And this objectivity is why using micro-behaviour approach to assess the quality of a coaching session can result in a more accurate diagnosis of strengths and weaknesses, allowing for targeted training and faster speed to competency. You're not relying on general impressions or just friendly rapport between the 2 parties. You're really looking at exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's surprising. There's a lot missing, isn't there?
Yeah, it's very zigzaggy. It's a bit like my attempt to mend my clothing with a sewing machine that I don't know how to use. So as I mentioned, when we looked at the very first frequency graph, this is purely a map of one conversation, the one that we just listened to. But Dave, what does that look like on a graph when there's more than one ACDC conversation in it?
Yeah, that's interesting, because when you and your organisation start to assess multiple conversations over time, the quality of your insights becomes better, and you really start to see real trends appear. So imagine if this was your coaching performance across a whole year, where would you start to focus on improving? If the graph was for your team or your whole organization, you can kind of start to predict the impact of your coaching sessions, as you can really start to see which behaviors are done regularly and which are not, right? So you see in the orange one there, which goes into the grey, that's kind of getting an idea of how that coach is starting to assess themselves, right? On our ACDC online platform, the great thing about that is that our coaches or QA teams can start to track the performance as well. So you'll start to see here how the coach starts to see their performance. And when senior leaders and their teams have minimal differences like this between the way that the coach is assessing their coaching conversation and the way that the leader is assessing their coaching conversation, that's when you can really start to say that your organization is starting to develop a coaching culture. When we see large discrepancies between how a QA team or how a leader assesses a coaching conversation and how a coach assesses their own coaching conversation, that's when you start to get just confusion and people aren't on the same page and very little behavioral change is occurring in the organization. When you see alignment here, that's representative of a coaching culture.
Absolutely. And that's what the calibration's for, isn't it? To get all on the same page. Yeah. Fantastic. Yep. Okay, I know we've taken up a lot of your time today. We've had a lot to get through. So thank you so much for sticking with us. And I hope that this has been able to help you highlight some of your own strengths and weaknesses throughout that ACDC platform. Now, you guys are experts at setting goals and commitments now. So I won't take you through that today. I want to send you away, and after this session, I want you to set your own goal and make sure you're specific and make sure you set your quantity and date and measure and all of those components in and check in with yourself. Make sure it's an achievable goal, and good luck with that. Now, we have a few more sessions coming up that really tackle those problem points that coaches might have. And we'd really like to hear from you too, as coaches in the field. Are there specific problems that you've encountered? I'm sure you're not the only one. So feel free to drop us a line and let us know if you have anything that you'd really like us to focus on in upcoming webinars. And as always, you'll receive an invitation to every upcoming webinar if you've already been. And we'd love to see you again.
Terrific. Kate, Jay, Cherie, Nat, Lydia, thank you so much for giving us your time and expertise and insights into the session today. It's really interesting to see what goes on behind the scenes and to get your insights into why we assess a yes and why we assess a no. And to everyone else, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. I wish you the very best for the rest of your day. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Kate and Dave. Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye. Right.